The Charlotte Ledger Podcast is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network.
This episode of the Charlotte Ledger Podcast is sponsored by Childcare Search. Finding childcare is more than checking a box. It's peace of mind. For over 40 years, Childcare Search, a service of Childcare Resources Incorporated, has helped families find safe, nurturing, quality childcare options. Their free referral service connects you to licensed programs that fit your family's needs. Visit findchildcarenc.org or call 1-888-600-1685 to talk to a childcare navigator today.
Welcome to the Charlotte Ledger Podcast. I'm Steve Dunn. To find out more about the Charlotte Ledger, visit thecharlotteledger.com. I'm joined by Gilbert Bergman, owner of Bergman Brothers Environmental. Welcome, Gilbert.
Hi, how are you, Steve?
Wonderful. What does Bergman Brothers Environmental do?
Bergman Brothers is a company that specializes in providing environmental workers to environmental companies in the United States. So we specialize with abatement workers, lead abatement workers, people that do hazardous materials, hazmat, and mold remediation.
So if there's like a building or a site that has some sort of environmental contamination, your workers are the ones who come in and clean that stuff up?
Correct. So the way it works is a contractor who is licensed to be an environmental company in the state will call Bergman Brothers and say, look, we need 5 workers to remove asbestos in this building. And they need to have all of the accreditations and certifications up to date to be able to do that work. So an abatement worker needs to have a physical, PTF, which is a pulmonary function test. They need to show proof that they can wear a respirator according to OSHA. They have to do that. And they have to have a 32-hour class that they have to take to be able to become an abatement worker in the state of North Carolina. As well, they also have to get a license from the state. And then once they have those 3 things in place, they can actually do the work on a job site in the state of North Carolina.
What are the typical contexts of this work? Is it like a situation where a building is being torn down or something, or something's being built? It sounds like there's something there that needs to be removed, right?
Correct. So every time there is a demolition that takes place, and if the building was built prior to 1980, most likely there's a big chance the building might contain asbestos, either on the tiles, or it can be on the thermal system, it can be on the roof, it can be on the siding, it can be anywhere really.
Is that sort of the biggest contaminant that you run into?
Asbestos is, yes. Yeah. I would say that asbestos is. I mean, it was used in over 50% of the buildings in the United States from the 1900s all the way to 1982.
So
72, sorry.
It's a widely used construction material that the reason why it needs to be handled very carefully now is because it can cause lung problems and diseases, right? Like
yes. So it's a mineral, and it has fibers, and the fibers are really strong, and they are wonderful.
Good insulation, right?
It's great insulation.
Right.
It's weatherproof. It was used in chemical labs, because it doesn't absorb the chemicals. It was used in so many different places in construction. It was used in curtains for the theater. It was used in cigarette filters. It was used in all kinds of things. It was wonderful. It was really wonderful. But the problem is that when it becomes friable.
And friable means that it's like floating in the air.
Pulverize it with your finger.
Right.
You touch it, you pulverize it. It becomes airborne. And then the fibers are so small that they're not stopped by when you breathe them, they're not stopped with, when your nose, you have your little hairs inside of your nose.
Right.
Stop, like bad stuff. It will go straight to your lungs, and it will get deposited in your alveoli, in your lungs, and they will create a scar over time. That's called asbestosis. So over time, if you're inhaling asbestos over and over and over again, you will just continue to accumulate it there. And then after some time, your lungs will not be able to contract and expand, and you die from asphyxiation. It's horrible.
Ugh. All right. Well, so if I'm doing a construction project and there is asbestos on the site, it's got to be removed somehow. And there's a lot of regulations around how that's done and who does it, right? And it sounds like what Bergman Brothers does is provides people who are trained and certified to do this kind of specialized work.
Yes, not only that, but also individuals that can set up a containment. You have to contain it. So 4 rules every time you have an issue in the environment. You first identified what the chemical is or the hazard. Then you contain it. Then you remove it, and then you dispose it. So if you ever see, the oil spills on the ocean, right? Every time there's a big oil spills, which I don't like to see them, but whenever you do see that, right? They have like this floating, inflatable, cushions that are containing all the oil. They're making sure it doesn't continue to spread, right? So the idea is you contain it, you put it in one place, and then you remove it, and then you dispose it, and then, you know what I mean? I mean, that's the general rule there. So the same thing with asbestos. If you find asbestos in a building, most likely, or if you presume there is asbestos in a building, you will have a specialized individual that will come to the building, and they will take samples, and then they will take those samples to a lab to see if the building has asbestos. The naked eye cannot tell if there's asbestos or not in a building. I mean, because it was using cement. Cement looks like cement.
It looks all the same whether it contains asbestos or not.
It does. So you have to take it to a lab. You have to make sure that it's tested. And once it's tested, then you create a plan on how to remove the asbestos. Because asbestos, like I said, it's everywhere. So imagine if you find asbestos, for instance, in a mall. Well, you have to create a plan to be able to remove that so there's no contamination in the mall, because you don't want anybody in that mall to be contaminated with asbestos. So you have to set up special decontamination areas where you put plastic all over the place, and you put a machine inside that is called a negative air machine that sucks all the air, and all the clean air comes outside. And then you use water to minimize the airborne asbestos in air. And then you have special bags where you put asbestos, and then you do all kinds of things.
Well, and all
it's
this,
a process that is fascinating.
It's like a whole
and I'm
thing.
in love with it. It's just, it's very interesting. It really is. It's not fun job. It's dirty. It's wet. And,
right.
It's not. You're not working in an office, but but it's really cool because you're doing something good. You're doing something that is going to protect the well-being of the people in that building.
Right.
And not only asbestos, also lead. Lead affects children. And when they, eat those chips that fall off the windows, it creates neurological diseases and problems for children, developments and, developmental problems and so on. So when you do remove lead and asbestos, you're doing something good.
Yeah, you're cleaning up the world.
You are.
And a lot of it sounds like all these processes that you're going through, it sounds like it's part of it is good practices. It's sort of a good, effective techniques for remediating these environments. But I would assume that a lot of it is based on laws and regulations as well. Like
Yes.
It's very tightly controlled, like all these steps you got to go through, right?
It is very tightly controlled. I mean, on a job site, you might have somebody, a representative from OSHA, you might have the industrial hygienist, you have a supervisor. Everybody's looking at you. Everybody's making sure that this is done well.
So how do you find people who are trained and certified to do all this? Because it seems like there's only going to be so many of them out there. Right?
You don't. I mean, I think that's the reason why we started Environmental Training Group, which is ETG. We call it ETG. And the reason for that is it's an accredited training school in the state of North Carolina that trains workers how to become asbestos workers, how to become lead workers. We certify them. I'm an instructor. So my job in the company has changed a lot, from, recruiting and hiring to now really finding talent, finding individuals that are interested in working in the environmental industry. I'm a hazmat instructor as well. I do the 40 hours, the 24, the 8. I'm a asbestos trainer. I do the refreshers in Spanish and English. I do supervisor classes, supervisor refreshers. I'm also a lead trainer for the 16 hours. So, one of my jobs is to find individuals that want to get into the industry and then train them. It's really the only way to keep the industry alive, because one of the problems that you have in the construction industry in general is very few people are getting into it. I mean, you have a serious problem with trades. Very few carpenters are there, like the generation of your father, for instance. There were a lot of carpenters and bricklayers and framers and things like that. Really has disappeared over the years.
It's interesting to think about that, because I've got a son who's high school age, who's thinking about what to do after high school, and he's considering all options. Like maybe go to college, maybe take a gap year and then go to college, or maybe not go to college, right? And one of the things that I've been encouraging him to think about is the fact that trades there's always going to be a need. And when you can do things physically with your hands, that you're not susceptible to being replaced like by artificial intelligence, for example, in the same way that some other categories of jobs maybe are at risk. And it sounds like it's related to what you're talking about. It sounds like your experience is that there is an increasing shortage of qualified people getting into construction.
I believe that the statistics say that there are about 800 or maybe 900,000 jobs that can be filled in construction. I think the numbers are around there. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe not around there, maybe 700, maybe 100. But the point is that a lot of the highly skilled workers are retiring. Everybody wants to become a YouTuber these days.
Well, my son absolutely would fall into that category for sure.
Right.
That would be the best job.
Mine too, right?
Yeah.
So, but the reality is that as a HVAC technician, you can make $120,000 a year.
Here's Bergman Brothers. Like Bergman Brothers is a company that it sounds like you're actually training the workers on one end through ETG to then be certified and capable of doing the work that you then sort of contract with who are your customers?
My customers are environmental companies, licensed contractors that have the license to remove asbestos, to work with hazardous materials, to work removing lead, and they are my clients. Those are my clients. We work with them, and we do extensive work in federal buildings and military bases. We work in a lot of, for instance, arsenals where they make the weapons. The lead has to be removed. So that's a job where we've actually sent workers to. It's across the board. So it's a combination of all buildings that are being refurbished, or they're being turned into they're giving a different purpose in life. We had a project in Texas where we took this was a huge campus, I would say, of manufacturing buildings that were turned into data centers, and they were cleaning them up. And we were there for 2.5 years, taking these buildings and taking all the chemicals out and cleaning them out and turning them into data centers through a client that we had in Texas.
We'll be right back to the conversation, but first, this episode of the Charlotte Ledger podcast is presented by Childcare Search, Charlotte's trusted childcare guidance for families.
Okay, so your business is based in Charlotte, right?
It is.
But you've got projects going on
all over the United States,
all over the U.S. Okay, and
we just quoted a job in Hawaii. And I wanted to go.
Yeah, I think you should go. You should go supervise that.
But it fell through. But I know. But so it's all over the United States. It's from North Dakota to New England, from New England to Florida. It's all over the United States.
Do you personally travel to these places to
I do.
Oversee this stuff?
Sometimes I do, because sometimes I might have to do a refresher, or I might have to do a class. safety class to get the workers inside.
They got to keep their certifications current. Is that
They
part
do,
of it?
yes, yes.
So
So
you have to do recurring training on an ongoing basis.
Correct. So every year you have to do a refresher on the subject, and you have to take a test. You have to pass the test.
So the listeners of the Charlotte Ledger podcast will be able to tell that you are not a native Charlottean, that you're from Nicaragua yourself, right?
Why? Because of my southern accent?
Yeah, well, it's very far southern accent.
Deep south.
Very deep south, right? So you are you're an immigrant to the U.S., and I'm curious how that informed your experience of getting into business in this country. And so, what was it like to grow up in Nicaragua, and how did you find yourself in the United States?
I think it was fun to grow up in Nicaragua. It's a lot of freedom. It's not very well structured compared to the States, right? And obviously, you have more leisures there. You know, you have people that work in the house, they help you out, and so on. You have mates, and it's just a different setup, right? And it was it's very controlled. Like everybody knows each other by now. It's a very small country, so it was an interesting experience. But I didn't really spend that much time there. I came to the States when I was 14, and the majority of my adult life and my life has been spent in the United States. I mean, I've lived here for 38 years, and I think at the beginning. Just like every beginning, I came here when I was a teenager. I was rebellious. I mean, which teenager is not rebellious? All of them are, right? And there was this feeling of, why do you brought me here? I was happy back in Nicaragua. I had my girlfriend. I had my friends. So it was like starting all over again. And that's just normal. I mean, it happens to families in the United States that move from one state to the next, right? But you go through that process of adaptation. And also, I think at the beginning, it was very difficult because I did not speak English. I was in a German school. I was going to the Deutsche Schule in Nicaragua, the German school. I was learning how to speak German, not English. So it was very complicated when I came here to make friends at the beginning and get adapted to the system, to understand how everything worked. But listen, I tried, and I tried really hard. I played football. I was the bench warmer, but I played football. I wrestled. I did sports that were not really sports that I played in Nicaragua. Like I didn't play soccer. So I tried to get, I guess, adapted to the States. And I had a good time in high school. I had a really good time. I made a lot of friends. And then in college, I made more friends. And then, slowly, you become an American.
Right. You hang around
without even noticing it. It's like, now when I travel to Nicaragua, I feel like I'm a tourist.
Right.
I'm like, I miss my...
Right.
But you don't realize it. I mean, even though, I still have an accent and stuff like that. And even though, people ask me, hey, where you from? Well, I'm from Nicaragua, but I really feel American.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
I do.
It's a weird feeling. It's not a weird feeling. That's just the way it is. I mean, I really feel that I am from Charlotte. I mean, I've been here for 22 years.
You've been here longer than anywhere else.
Right. And people ask me, where are you from? I'm from Charlotte. I mean, I don't say I'm from Nicaragua. When people, they might ask me more questions, but where are you really from? You know? I'm like, okay, well, I was born in Nicaragua.
Well, by virtue of your background, you have your own perspective on being from Charlotte and being an American. You're also married to Monica, who is from Spain.
From Spain.
You met Monica in Nicaragua in Nigeria. I'm sorry, when you were both meeting there. So you're from Nicaragua and she's from Spain. And you met in Nigeria. Right. You now live in Charlotte. You got 3 kids who are all native Charlotteans, right? They're all from Charlotte, North Carolina. It's a city where you run a business and you've raised a family. It seems to me that there is something similar about being an entrepreneur and being an immigrant, right? When you come to a place and make a life in a new place, it's similar to starting a business. There's an aspect of risk to it. There's an aspect of having to be responsible for your own success or failure. And it's something different from having a job and working for somebody else. Like, have you always known that you would be a business owner?
No.
How did it happen?
I don't know. I mean, some things in life just happen. I was working in Africa. I was working for somebody. I wasn't working as an employee. I was more like a contractor for them. And I left Africa and came to Charlotte to see my brother Fred, who had moved here from Boca Raton to Charlotte because he was working at Bank of America, or one of the financial institutions. And he was the one that said, hey, do you want to start this business of staffing? I says, well, I didn't really know anything about it, Steven. I had no idea what it was. I didn't know what human resources was. I mean, I was young. I wasn't really knowledgeable about all the things. So I said, sure, let's take a look at it. And that's where everything started. And then in 2006, he said, I don't like the business. I'm tired. I'm moving to India to become a yogi. And he disappeared. And I stayed with the business.
So it's you're the only Bergman brother.
I'm the only Bergman
There's
brother.
only one Bergman brother
one
in this business, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
So Fred now lives in Nicaragua. He's there with my dad and my mom, and he's happy. He's doing something else. But the Bergman Brothers is just one brother.
Did it start out as more of a general like staffing temporary workers sort of company?
We did anything to pay the bills.
Right.
I mean, if people call me and says, we need a worker to do this, I'm like, no problem.
I got you.
We got to pay the light bill. So, whatever we could get our hands into, we will do. Whatever we could staff, we will staff. So that's how we started. And then obviously the business just evolved into something completely different. I don't think we are, or we act like a staffing agency because we're so, specialized in what we do. And the workers that we hire can't just be people coming off the streets. They have to have all this training that really are more like subcontractors than really staffing, a staffing business, which is more like people come to your place and they ask for a job, and then you have all these different manufacturing places where you send them to and so on. Ours is very specialized. It really is. I mean, they can come to the office and ask for a job, but if they don't have the qualifications that we need them to go to work, you just can hire them.
Well, what started as your brother's idea that you just kind of went along with, you kind of happened into it, really, is now been your life's work for decades at this point.
25 years.
And you've grown it to a point where now you're bidding on jobs in Hawaii and Texas and North Dakota and all over the U.S. The nature of the work has changed. The type of workers that you provide, that has evolved to where now you're specializing in the environmental remediation business. You're at a place now where you've been doing it long enough that you're not at the beginning. It doesn't look like you're done. You're still plugging away at it, but I wonder what you see in your own future and how you reflect back about how far you've come.
That's a good question. I think that everybody that turns 50 asks themselves that question, right? Now that I'm here, everything is working well. We have a good infrastructure. The business is running for the most part good. You have your ups and downs, but that's just normal. I'm in love with the business systems, the infrastructure of it. The idea of making the business indestructible. The idea of me not being in the business. The idea of Gilbert disappearing for 6 months, coming back, and the business is doing better than what it was doing when I first left, right? So I'm looking into that, and I'm also looking into maybe getting into different areas of the environmental field. One thing that we're been doing a lot is working with superintendents and junior superintendents and hiring and working with people that have even more skill than the ones that we hired on a normal basis. So taking the business to a different level, that's making it more complicated. You know me. I mean, you know me for a lot of years, Steven. I like to complicate myself. I don't know why. Maybe I'm a masochist. I just, I need to make it more complicated, right? I need to all right. Well,
make
the common more common, right?
Yeah. One of the things I do know about you, though, is that you've always got an idea, right? You've always got a thought about something that could be done better or could be done another way, another way of making a living, right? And I think it's a very common thing for people to go through life to look out around the world and think, well, I could do this or that could happen, or I could do something different. And sometimes the best thing to do is focus on what you're already doing. A lot of times, like, where you are is the best place to be. And but it's only through taking a real look outward that you can arrive at that conclusion. You know what I mean? But that's kind of what I'm asking you about. It's sort of like where you are now in this process, about whether you're thinking about life after Bergman Brothers, whether you have some new venture in mind, or whether you look forward to a time of rest and contemplation and just taking a break.
I think that I'm just, I don't know. I mean, I don't see Bergman Brothers as a job. I just love it. So it's for me to go to work. It's not really going to work. It's like I go there to play, and I'm like, thinking of ideas on how I can do this better and that better, and how to, get into this area of the business and so on. So I think for the next 10 years, this is where I'm at. Is just continue to be creative with the business. But at some point, I like to do other stuff. At some point, I like to pass the baton to somebody else and say, hey, do this or run the business, or maybe at some point even sell it. Although every time I think about selling Bergman Brothers, like my heart shrinks. Like, oh, it's like giving away your kid, It's a really weird feeling to do that. But I don't know, man, Steve. That's a very good question. I think that Bergman Brothers is going to be around for the next 10 years. I'm 52. I'm still very young. I don't know if I want to do something else right now. I want to continue doing what I'm doing. I want to continue growing this business. I want to solidify the business even more than what it already is. And then I can think of something else. I like what I do. I really enjoy what I do. I think that helping people change their lives and giving them a skill where they can make money, and that's awesome. That is awesome. I think that at the end of the day, that's the trophy that I take home. Money's money, you get bored with money. I mean, you know what I mean? It doesn't give you the same satisfaction. You got to have a purpose in life, right? And I think my purpose is that. My purpose is to see people grow, to see people change their lives. And I think that you can do that through this industry. I mean, this is the industry I feel comfortable with, the industry that I've become very knowledgeable about. So for me to see that is wonderful.
Well, that's a great place to leave it. Gilbert Bergman, thank you so much for being with me on the Charlotte Ledger podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
That's it for today. Thanks for listening. This episode was produced by Lindsay Banks. You can find out more about the Charlotte Ledger by visiting thecharlotteledger.com.
This episode of the Charlotte Ledger podcast was presented by Child Care Search, helping families find safe, quality childcare with free referrals and support every step of the way.
QueenCityPodcastNetwork.com.